Hello Simmers, we're back with the final episode of our Draft to Glory franchise mode with the Cocytus River Rats. And this one we're just going to be wrapping things up. We're not going to be doing any simulating. I do want to do more with this team. Obviously it is my VTuber branding team, right? But this is the end of the Draft to Glory part of this franchise mode. So I'll definitely be holding on to this save file for the future. Maybe we'll be doing some live streams at that point. And that's definitely something I've thought about doing. It's just a matter of finding the time to do it. But we're going to take a look at the player index here and see who led our team on the all-time scoring list. You have Vannanen leading the way with 474 points in 727 games played. He has been solid for us throughout his entire time here. He started at 20 years of age, didn't even go to the AHL, and he's been a solid 50, 60 point scorer ever since. And then, of course, you have Andreev, who in 546 games played, you have 470 points, only 4 points behind Vannanen. And if he had another season, Andreev would definitely have been at the top of the scoring list. And then you have Bouchard in 727 games played, leads all defensemen with 463 points. Then you have Spelkvist in 582 games played with 446 points. He had the most goals with 212. And then Bouchard had the most assists with 320. Then you have Stenberg in 675 games played with 436 points. Gavin McKenna, of course, who is no longer on the team, but was still a big part of this team while he was here, who in 660 games played had 432 points. Then Denoy had 375 points in 677 games played. Ellefson is the second defenseman to appear on the list with 306 points in 715 games played. Pellizzari following right after him with 265 points in 501 games played. And then you have Ross Colton sitting there at number 10 with 263 points in 438 games played. Now we're going to take a look at the playoff stats. You have Andreev leading the way with 53 points in 58 games played. Spelkvist and Orr each with 38 points. Then you have Bouchard with 35, Vannanen with 34, Pellizzari with 32, Carlson with 29, Denoye with 28, Neuenschwander with 25, Baxter with 24, Ellefson with 22, Stenberg with 18, McKenna with 16 in 25 games played, Watherspoon with 14, Larson with 13, Kutayarvi with 11, Zerker and Hackinson with 10. And then we'll take a look at goaltenders. We only went through 6 goaltenders in this entire save file, so that's actually pretty impressive considering how many goaltenders we went through in the Rangers and Hamilton series earlier on this year. And honestly, most of our goaltenders were pretty good. Gustafsson and Lindgren started us out. In 106 games played for Gustafsson, he had a 909 save percentage, and Lindgren in 195 games played had a 908 and 10 shutouts. So both them, considering where this team was while Lindgren and Gustafsson were on the team, I would consider that pretty good for that time. And then we moved on to Luciano Ruggiero, who was only with us for a couple of years, 64 games played total, but he was pretty impressive. He had a 914 save percentage in that time. And I thought at first that he was going to end up being our goaltender of the future, but then an opportunity to trade him for a first round pick came along. I obviously didn't want to ignore that. And so we did that trade. Then Frolov came along. In 2028, he had a 916 save percentage in 261 games played. Again, thought he was going to be the guy as well, because for the most part, Frolov was pretty solid. But then comes along Katachev, who in 360 games played had a 920 save percentage collective with 23 shutouts and 197 wins. And then, of course, you have Nyberg, who for the past 2 years has backed up Katachev in 46 games played with a 910 save percentage and 3 shutouts. So, I mean, I've sung Katachev's praises for basically the entire time he's been here, and I will continue to do so. And as a matter of fact, I would dare say that if Katachev hadn't performed the way he had, I'm not sure if we would have won. I'm not sure if we would have won this year. I mean, obviously, Andreev had, what was it? I believe it was 27 points this past playoffs in 23 games played, which was still incredible. And he did end up winning the Conn Smythe, but Katachev with that 921 save percentage in 23 games played, he was just so good. And not only good, he was elite. He played at elite level for his entire time here. There was not one time where I ever doubted Katachev. That's got to be a first. That has to be a first for a goaltender in FHM 11 at the very least. So if we don't continue with this save file, which I think we will, just not with this series, I think Katachev would definitely have his number retired and possibly even Channel Hall of Fame. I might even dare say Channel Hall of Fame for Denis Katachev, which, by the way, as of right now, there is only one player in the Channel Hall of Fame, That is a very exclusive club. And that player currently in the Channel Hall of Fame is Doug Elfring from the Calgary Flames GM mode. I think Kadachev has made a strong case. I do. Because I have no reason to doubt that he would not continue the trend of what his numbers have been ever since he came into the league. And I think I said this last episode, but Kadachev, once his contract comes up, I'm giving him a blank check. He can write whatever number he wants on there, and I'll give it to him because he has proven without a doubt that he is one of few goaltenders in this game who can consistently perform at an elite level without having to worry about him even having a down year. Like his down year, his one quote unquote down year, he had a 911 save percentage, which is still good, right? That's still good numbers. And I mean, obviously he did have some struggles during a couple of years in the playoffs, the 870 and the 886, but you can't necessarily blame all of that on him either. But then in the years where we made it past the first round, in the 2032-33 season, and then this past season, obviously, he had very good save percentages. And then, of course, the year before this year, Kadachev was actually injured during the playoffs, so he didn't play. That's why he skips a year here. But I'm confident that if he had played in those playoffs, he would have also done a very good job there. So I think Kadachev should at least be considered for Channel Hall of Fame. That's a remarkable accomplishment. I mean, I always retire numbers at the end of every series, right, to acknowledge the players that, were really good for us. But Kadachev, again, I think he's on a different level. He might very well be on a different level. And now let's take a look at the staff index for coaches. We had 4 coaches over the course of this GM mode. We started out obviously with Drew Bannister in 2024 and kept him for 6 years. Obviously had 524 games played. And just considering where that team was at the time, right, in terms of the level of talent that we had, I don't blame him for having more losses than wins. And then we moved on to Rod Brindamore for a single year. So I thought he would have been the answer, but it just wasn't really working out with him. So we moved on to Pascal Vincent, who was with us for the course of 4 years. And he did a lot of good for this team. Obviously, he didn't take us to the Stanley Cup like we were hoping he would, but he did what he did do. He was able to develop the team to where we are talent-wise, right? And then so we got into the playoffs with Vincent. Obviously, we were never able to get past the second round with him, but he was still key in developing our team to the point where they are now. And then Jared Bednar took over, of course, after Vincent retired in 2034. And in that very year, this past year, Jared Bednar comes in and wins the Stanley Cup for us after our 53-win season. So something else I would like to do now is take a look at all of the past drafts, considering that, the draft was a very big part of this series and a big reason why we are where we are right now. So let's review each draft individually. We'll start with the 2025-26 draft, as obviously we did not participate in the 24-25 draft. So the first player we ever drafted, Caleb Denoye, 7th overall in the 2025 draft. He played 677 games played for us. He's still on our team right now, 375 points. However, just because we took him 7th overall, he was our first pick, doesn't mean he was the best player to come out of this draft. That, I think, would have to go to Apo Vananen, who, of course, leads our team in point scoring with 474 in 727 games played. But it wasn't just those two. Of course, there was Frolov, there was Ruggiero, there's Cody Arvey came out of that draft, and Isimovitz came out of that draft. So a few good players coming out of that first draft. And then, of course, there was the year 2 draft, the Gavin McKenna draft, or should I say the Dennis Kadachev draft. And this draft had a lot of good players. It easily was one of our best drafts. You have McKenna, you have Hermanson, you have Stenberg, Kadachev, obviously. Atkinson came out of this draft, Ellefson. So a lot of good players there. Then in the year 3 draft, that was the Bouchard draft. We unfortunately missed on the second round pick that draft. But who also came out of this draft was Neuenschwander in the 3rd round, Wotherspoon in the 4th round, Pellizzari in the 6th round. Pellizzari was a 6th round pick. Wow. And then Louis Carlson as well, who had 223 points in 459 games played. So this was a really solid draft. The year 3 draft was really good. And then comes the year 4 draft. There wasn't really much here in terms of depth, but the top 2 picks, Milos Spelkvist and then Roman Andreev, it cannot be understated how important the both of them were to our success this past season. I mean, Milos Spelkvist obviously leads our team in goal scoring, 212 goals on his career. And then Roman Andreev close behind him with 190. And then, of course, you also have Krivenek, who is a solid depth defenseman for us. And then in the year 5 draft, you have Tyson Orr and Blake Baxter, who came out of this draft. So once again, another draft that didn't really have too much depth, but 2 solid players at pick number 8 and 10. And then you have the year 6 draft. I would say this was certainly the the dud draft. We did not get anybody too impactful out of this draft. We did get Kapustin 15th overall, but of course we did eventually end up trading him to the Minnesota Wild for a first round pick. And he was packaged alongside of Wotherspoon as well in that trade. And then you have the year 7 draft, where we took Christian Zerker 6th overall. And then you had Kwang Chinquo and Kuniyoshi Tanaka in the 5th and 6th rounds respectively. Then year number 8, you have Edvin Zalidis, who was the only player to play games out of that draft, at least for us. And then I believe from this draft onward, there are no prospects who played any games. Yeah, it doesn't look like it. Nope. Overall, I would say our best draft was definitely the Katachev draft. Obviously, McKenna's no longer on the team, but he did still serve his purpose well enough while he was here. You had Hermanson, once again, no longer on the team, but he was pretty good for us. Stenberg, then you have Elofsson, who's still with us. So just a very solid draft overall in the 2026-27 draft. And so with that, I think we're just about done here. I do want to do the jersey retirements, but that said, I think I am going to want to reuse this save file at some point. I'm not sure when or for what, but I do know that I want to continue with the Cocytus River Rats in some form because, once again, they are my VTuber brand team, so maybe we'll use them in a live stream in the future. But if I were to retire some numbers, I think you would definitely have to have Andreev in there. I would say Bouchard as well. He was definitely key on the back end for not only stability, but goal scoring as well. As defensive grade being consistently in the high 70s and low 80s made him a mainstay, a staple on our defensive core. And this is the reason why I made him captain. And then obviously you have to, you have to retire Katachev's number 30, right? Just considering the fact that I was already considering him for Channel Hall of Fame, which, at that point you made, that's an automatic jersey retirement. And so with that being done, I think we're going to end things off here. But not, of course, before I thank the channel members, thank you guys so much for all your support and for watching this series. And I'll see you guys in the next one.